set. Oh, it's happy with it.
I know. No.
We like it. It's there. There you go. We're like, exactly. Oh, sorry.
I thought they were a little loose. But yeah. They're so funny.
So do you have?
Yeah, we're gonna.
Okay. Yeah, so if you need, even this I can touch base with you. Yeah.
So I don't know if we knew.
And I'm just stacked. Yes.
Take the first side of the.
And students, when I was doing the prize.
That's fine.
You wanna?
Just, there's a little one of them. I gave the. Weapons, my children use it. I think so. I come home to them. Each other. No. Yeah. Right. Thank you very much. Celebrate that. You have all wages, have a story. This is how the story. Yeah, no, it's very nice. It's like close to your mom. That's at our house. This hospital. I don't know. Yes, it's.
Oh,
I'm sorry. It's not that exciting.
the video's never. I'll have to show you mine. I've gone overboard this one.
This is our.
Oh, it's so nice.
They are.
But they. Which I mean, not just the Salem, but you know, the thing, but like, well, reason why not. Stuff and all that. And what's in like, I just need one of their. Oh.
I know.
So, yes, I get the knowledge. Yeah. Solid areas. It's too close to. Yeah.
Spooky enough, right? All right, let me say like one thing that I'll hand over to the. All right, good morning. It's really nice to see all of you. I feel like it's been too long. I cursed myself, right? I kept telling all of you that I could feel the cold coming on, and yeah, I shouldn't have said that, right? So I'm so sorry that it wasn't here last week. I did take a quick picture because I promised you that I would do this. So luckily, I felt fine before I ate all the churros. So I didn't eat all of these at once. These were spread out these are my kids' churros, but I did have plenty of churros and that's my evidence, right? But sadly, got violently ill after that. So I'm so sorry for the interruption. I don't want to take too much of their time, but we really have to have them. Just write a few reminders up here on the board. Okay, so I'll talk more about this, but I'm keeping the paper back till Monday, just so that we have a little bit of some of your just so time to talk about it on Wednesday. I want to make sure you know exactly what I'm expecting. I want to make sure that you've watched my videos, and interestingly, if you did watch the videos from the library and writing center, you might notice Jasmine there, who's here today as well. More on Wednesday, but I just wanted to put these things on your mind. Make sure by Wednesday that you completed the things I did post while I was out, those alternate assignments. That you're starting to work on your paper. We'll talk more about it on Wednesday. And that exam is coming up in a couple of weeks. I made it before Halloween. I wasn't going to give you a test on Halloween. That would just be cruel. So just things to think about. We'll talk about them more on Wednesday. Otherwise, I'm going to hand it over to them. You don't need to take a lot of notes, but definitely pay attention. Maybe write down any kind of major stuff. The things that they gave you, the low booklet, anything in here would also be fair game. Put it on the study guide to be fair game in the past. Okay, so I will be over here. They're all yours.
Cool. Can everybody see the slide up here?
We can turn it down.
We can turn it down a little bit.
That's right. Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's better for me. Is it better for you guys? Can you see it okay? Great. All right. So, my name is Allison Barton and I'm a coordinator at the Moore Park College Student Health Center. You guys know, how many of you knew we had a student health center? Just a few of you. Okay, so you are in a perfect spot. We are right across Raider Walk from the student health center. It's in the admin building. Right across the street from this building, or right across Raider Walk from this building. You guys all paid a health fee. And that means you have access to medical and mental health services. Pretty much free after the fee that you already paid, right? So at a minimum, you're getting a bendy today in the stream, but you're also, you have access to a doctor, a nurse practitioner. We have a full mental health staff. So if you find that you need well woman care or STI care or any, you come to school and you don't feel good and you want to check in, right? You can do that. And mental health counseling available to you. There's a card inside your booklet that looks like this, and it has more of a, like more of the services that we provide. And then the number to call to make an appointment is right on the front there. The other thing I wanted to make sure everybody is aware of is that we have a student survey going on. How many of you have seen the email about the National College Health Association Student Health Survey? 1 person, 2, 3. How many of you have taken the survey yet? 1. Thank you for taking that. Did you get your free goodie bag at the student health center? Did you know that you have one that you could come and get? Yeah. So all you have to do is print out the proof that you did. They should have sent you an email with, hey, you took this. Thank you. Bring it over and we'll give you a goodie bag. So for everybody else, you've gotten 3 reminders now. One was sent out yesterday via your school email about the survey. It takes about 20 minutes to take, so it's not horrible. And it tells us so much about what your needs are as a student. That's Moore Park College, and that's how we decide what kind of services to have. And when we share that information, it's all anonymous, but we share that information with other services on campus. And so I not only do I ask you, I implore you and I beg you to take that survey if you could, please. It closes on Friday night, so you have this week to take it. So it's not like a dire emergency right now, but we'd really appreciate it if you take that survey. Okay. So my partner in crime today is Jasmine Betka. She is our health educator at the Student Health Center, and you maybe have seen her out tabling. If you got to see our health fair a couple of weeks ago, she was the mastermind behind that. We're really lucky to have her on our campus. And today we're here to talk to you about QPR, which means question, persuade, refer, and it's our suicide prevention curriculum that we use on our campus here. So today we are definitely going to talk about suicide, and some of you may have had an experience with suicide, either somebody in your family or a friend, or maybe thought about it yourself. And so we want you to know that this topic can be kind of hard for people. And it may not be the right thing for you today. Okay, and if that's the case, if you feel like you need to leave because this is just way too much today, that's okay. That's fine. What we do need you to do is let us know that you're leaving. But that you're okay. And if you're not okay, one of us can walk you over to the student health center, right? To see one of our mental health providers or help you out in some way. Does that make sense? So you may just want to get up and go to the bathroom or get a drink of water or something. You still need to know that. Not, you don't have to be too graphic, but just say, I just need to leave and I'll be back in 5 minutes or whatever, okay?
You can let me know.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
tackle you this week. I mean,
Just check and sit right there. And I have chased people to the bathroom before. And it's like, are you okay? And they're like, yes, I'm just going to the bathroom. So, you usually don't, this is college and you don't usually have to do that, but in this case you do, just because we'll be worried about you. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions about this? Questions? No. Okay. So, QPR has been around quite a while. It was started by Dr. Paul Quinnett, who is a suicidologist up in the Seattle area, up in Washington State, and where they have a rather high rate of depression and suicide. And through his research, this whole organization that Lisa had up discovered that there are lots of things that we can do to prevent suicides from happening. A lot of people think, well, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen, whatever. He's learned that there are some specific things that you can do as an ordinary citizen to prevent somebody from, or to help them rethink suicide, right? To prevent suicide from happening. It's one of the most preventable causes of death, actually, that there is. And a lot of us have grown up not thinking that that was the case. And so today we're going to lay out the facts as we know them today about suicide, and give you some skills, kind of like CPR. You know how how you learn a few actions to take that can save a life, like a heart attack, right, or stops breathing. This is the same idea, some basic tips, some basic actions you can take to prevent a suicide, right? And so we're going to start out by just explaining the statistics and explaining kind of the background of it. And then the second part of our presentation is just going to be those steps that you take, that you follow, right, to save a life, essentially. Okay, any questions, comments, concerns where we are right now? Okay, so Jasmine, take it away.
All right. So our goal, as Allison kind of covered today, we want to recognize warning signs for suicide. We also want to know how to intervene, right? Maybe we recognize some signs. How do we actually do something? And we want to kind of be more mindful of what signs and symptoms are so that we can process through and maybe get early referral for people. So potentially before crisis mode. And that again kind of ties in with early professional assessment and treatment, right? So the sooner we get to someone, the sooner we can get them help or connect them with someone who can help them, the better. And we also want to decrease stigma, because this is still a stigmatized topic, and it's still something that, as we're talking about today, can be difficult or have a stigma associated with it. So those are kind of our goals for today. Overall, too, what's really important is we love that you're all here and that you will learn tools to help, but we don't want anyone to feel like now this is their responsibility to be like a counselor or to make sure that they are in charge of someone's all over mental health, right? It's not intended to be a form of counseling or treatment. It's intended to be a tool set to help connect that person to the proper resources they need. And it's really, again, something that's an action step that's intended to offer hope. And so it's that intervention step that can offer hope, connect people to resources, but it's not your responsibility to counsel anyone or to take on that role. And culture really matters, right? When we talk about all of these, we're going to talk about different racial and ethnic groups, social groups, and it's really important to think about stigma and judgment and how stigma and judgment prevents certain groups, particularly potentially from accessing care or help. And then also, again, in talking about groups, it's not to overgeneralize the experience of a group, but to share kind of how statistics kind of form out. Because we know stigma and judgment prevent people in the US and specifically, for instance, the Black community from seeking treatment for their mental health conditions. And research also indicates that members often believe that mild depression or anxiety would be considered crazy in their social circles. So when we talk about, for instance, the US Black population, we want to think about extra or potential stigmas that are associated with that. We want to think about other cultures where mental health maybe is seen as weakness or someone's crazy, something like that. And how do we work through those stigmas or recognize that on our journey to helping people? And so the first part of this is kind of running through some of those specific cultural and racial based statistics. So for instance, the prevalence of depression in Latino women is higher than Latino men. And so again, with all these statistics, we have to know that there's always the potential for who's reporting it, how data is being collected and everything else. But when we look at the Latinx population, we have 46% of Latino women reporting depression versus 19.6% of Latino men. And looking kind of a little deeper into that, first and second generation Hispanics are significantly more likely to exhibit symptoms of depressions than immigrants. So in thinking about this too, right, we have to put it into context. Why might this be? What are some different social or cultural stigmas associated with this? And we also know that even within that, so let's say that you do have a higher prevalence of depression within a community, let's take the Latinx community, there's a lack of Latinx healthcare professionals available for those seeking help. So often when someone wants to seek help, they want to be with someone they can connect with or feels like they understand their background, their culture. And we know that there's a lack of professionals available for those who actually do seek help. Again, looking at some certain cultures and racial based statistics, we know that Black boys aged 10 to 13 are 2 to 3 times more likely to die by suicide than white boys 10 to 13. So it's 2 to 3 times more likely. Black men are particularly concerned about the stigma surrounding mental health. So again, thinking about cultures, is it seen as a sign of weakness? Is it seen as something that they don't need, that they need to be strong? And then again, we see that Latinos are less likely to report a mental health condition. So when we talk about, even if we're trying to collect data and see, okay, what are our populations, if we have underreporting or underrepresentation of certain groups, that's that much harder to address kind of racial and ethnic based stigma. And we also know that Hispanic students between grades 9 to 12 are at a greater risk of attempting to die by suicide than their Black and white peers. So kind of putting this all into context, we know that for Black boys 10 to 13, they're 2 to 3 times more likely to die by suicide. And then when we come over the time by high school, right, we have our Hispanic students are greater risk of attempting suicide than their Black or white peers. We also know that suicide is the leading cause of death among Asian Americans aged 20 to 24. And in Asian Americans, mental health can be viewed as a weakness, and talking openly about anything emotional, whether that's sadness, disappointments, various life events, is rarely encouraged. There's a lot of stoicism encouraged within many cultures, and especially within the Asian American culture. And stoicism kind of has this rule that you don't necessarily need that verbal affirmation or that physical touch, right? It's that you kind of keep it inside and you handle it and you deal with it. And so that's another barrier to kind of accessing mental health care, or even being able to talk about it and saying, I need help, right? A lack of readily available cultural and linguistically appropriate evidence-based suicide prevention and mental health treatment options, coupled with severe shortage of diverse and trained mental health workforce, further exacerbates poor mental health outcomes among minority population. So what does this mean? Again, going back to, we have all this data, but when we look at it, is it catered towards the communities that need to be served, right? Is it linguistically relevant? Is it culturally relevant? Or are we trying to treat everyone the same, get people to take, the same survey that maybe isn't coded in a way that's appropriate for that culture? Do we have evidence-based programs that address those cultural needs and different stigma within culture? And do we have a workforce that supports people from different communities? So these are some updated statistics from 2020. We know COVID's changed a lot, right? In the next couple of years, I'm sure we're going to see a lot of different numbers as well. But in 2020, there were 126 suicides per day in the US. So that means there's about 1 death every 11 minutes from suicide. It's also the second leading cause of death for 10 to 14 and 25 to 34-year-old age range. So what was interesting is, as we've done this presentation, so homicide replaced suicide in 15 to 24-year-olds, and suicide is now third, but we see that it is still a leading cause of death among these population age ranges. The highest risk for suicide is actually middle age, so 45 to 54, primarily white males. So that is like the highest bracket of individuals who have suicide ideation and who commit suicide. It's also the 11th leading cause of death overall in the US, and it's 12th in California. So thinking about everything, all causes of death, it's the 11th leading cause of death. And again, this data has shifted a bit because COVID's now the third in the US and California. So third leading cause of death is COVID, which has bumped some numbers around. So suicide ideation, planning, and number of attempts is highest in 18 to 25. So when we think about being on a college campus, there's all age ranges here, right? But we have a large population of 18 to 25-year-olds, and that is where we see the highest number of attempts and planning. Again, white males have the highest suicide rate, and the LGBTQ plus community has been found to attempt suicide at 5 times the rate of heterosexual individuals and 8.5 times if there's family rejection. So again, in thinking about communities, it's not to say everyone in this community is suicidal, right? It's more to think about, especially when we see when there's family rejection, 8.5 times more likely to attempt suicide. How are we connecting people to communities and resources and making sure to support each other? There's also about 17 veterans who die by suicide each day in the US. So when we look at overall, they represent about 7.2% of suicides. And so that actually was a decrease from 2018 to 2019, but we still have a significant portion of our veterans dying from suicide each day. And firearms account for almost 53% of all suicides, which is actually up because in 2018 and previous, it was also around 51%. So 53% of all suicides use firearms. So diving into COVID a little bit more, right? Everyone wants to know, like, these last few years have really changed things. What are the statistics? So by the end of June 2020, 40% of US adults reported struggling with mental health or substance abuse. So that's a significant increase. It was 28% in 2018. Now it's 40% of US adults. 31% reported anxiety or depression symptoms. So that was previously reported at 11% just the year prior. So we're up to 31%. 26% reported trauma or stressor-related disorders symptoms related to COVID. So again, increasing that trauma response and that stress-related response from COVID. 13% reported starting or increasing substance use. So a lot of people reported, increase in drinking, being home, everything else, or other substance abuse to kind of cope with everything with COVID. And 11% seriously considered suicide, which is an unchanged statistic, but we do see a lot of compounding concerns here. Unpaid caregivers were 3 times more likely to report suicide ideation than non-caregivers. And so again, in thinking about COVID, a lot of people ended up suffering, long hauler symptoms or other things. So now they had family members that were significantly ill, or maybe they were all home together with someone ill. And that really can increase or kind of put like a little pressure cooker situation on mental health. And so when caring for people, that can really increase suicide ideation. Rates for anxiety and depression and suicide were worse for people of color. So through all of this, again, we think of systemic barriers, we think of stigma, and in all of these kind of combined statistics, we know that people of color reported higher rates of anxiety, depression, and suicide. So the number one cause for suicide is undiagnosed and untreated depression. And with that, the number one clue is expressing hopelessness. So when someone's expressing hopelessness, we know that's the number one clue. And we know that undiagnosed and untreated depression is the number one cause for suicide. So what do we see in these two brains? So this is a brain that is depressed, and this is a brain that's not depressed. What's the difference between the two? Yeah.
It's a lot more yellow in the area of the front.
Yeah, definitely. Anything else to add?
I was gonna say there's more stimulation.
Yeah. So we see the brain that's not depressed is way more electrical activity, right? It's way more lit up. It has a lot more activity, stimulation. And so the brain that's depressed is way less lit up. And we know that depression is this real thing, right? That has real side effects. We can look at this MRI and see the difference. And so it's not something that people can just decide like, I'm just gonna smile today and have a good day, right? And that's so much of what we talk about with depression is just like, well, just look on the bright side of things and buck up, buttercup, right? But it's not the case. We have physiological differences. And so that's really important to remember in thinking about all of this. So what are some symptoms of depression? So it's a really wide range, right? We're going to list some symptoms here, but not everyone's going to have exactly the same textbook definition of depression. But some people do experience a loss of interest, pleasure, or motivation. So if you have a friend that like loves playing guitar and all of a sudden they have no motivation to play guitar, they're like, I just don't enjoy it anymore, right? That might be something to consider when someone really loves something and then there's all of a sudden a loss of interest, pleasure, or motivation, or that can kind of be more broad spread as well, right? Just in general, like I'm not motivated to go to class. I'm not motivated to go to work. I don't really have an interest in hanging out with friends. There can be heightened emotions, right? We all sometimes can get frustrated, but we really want to pay attention with depression to those heightened emotions of anger and frustration, irritability. So again, is there someone you know who's getting super frustrated at everything, super angry at small things, is extra irritable? That may be a symptom of depression. Also, feelings of profound sadness, guilt, or shame. So that kind of not being able to get out of that feeling sad or feeling shame for something or guilty for something can definitely be a symptom of depression. And we can also have fatigue or loss of energy. And that kind of ties in with changes in sleeping or eating patterns. Someone who's depressed may sleep way longer, right? They may want to just keep sleeping. They don't want to get up. They don't have any energy. They don't even want to like get dressed in the morning, right? And show up for class necessarily. Maybe they can eat a lot more or a lot less. We've seen both sides, right? Sometimes people stop eating. Sometimes people eat more than they usually do. And in regards to changes in sleep, Other people may not sleep excessively. They may not sleep at all, right? They may sleep less. They may like be awake at all hours or kind of start to not function on what we would call like a normal sleep pattern. They can also exhibit signs of having problems with concentration or making decisions. So not being able to really focus. Again, we're in an academic setting. So thinking about that, you know, if you're working in a group or you have a peer and you notice that they're not here, they're not with it, right? Or you're working on a class assignment and they can't really concentrate on it. Another big one is withdrawal from friends or family. So it's like, again, you have that friend or whoever who stopped texting back, who stopped checking in. Sometimes it's worth that little extra effort because we notice that with symptoms of depression, people can withdraw. And so it's like making that connection back. And again, what was our number one clue? Helplessness or hopelessness. And so people who express that it's all hopeless or that it's all helpless is a big indicator and warning sign that we want to watch out for. And of course, thoughts of death or suicide or even wishing to be dead are all symptoms of depression. So we're going to go through some myths and facts because again, we're having this toolbox here today, right? But there's a lot of stigma and misinformation around suicide in general. And we can be worried about intervening because we feel like we're going to make it worse. So we're going to talk about some common myths and then talk about what the reality actually is. So one of the myths is that no one can stop a suicide. It's inevitable, right? If someone wants to commit suicide, they're going to do it. There's nothing we can do about it. What we do know, though, is that if people in a crisis get the help they need, they will probably never be suicidal again. So suicide has a crisis mode when we get people help. That does not mean that it is inevitable, right? It means the exact opposite. It means that we can potentially prevent a suicide, that we can help. Another myth is that confronting a person about suicide will only make them angry and increase the risk of suicide. So being at the student health center, right, there's a lot of crisis situations that come to us, which is wonderful. And I've only been there, you know, a short amount of time, but the stories are that in all of the years, there's been one person who was angry and they still got help. And that's of dozens and dozens of people. Often people are so relieved that someone noticed, that somebody wants to help, that there's an option. And so this idea that if you confront someone, they're just going to get mad or like that will make them even more suicidal isn't true, right? A lot of people express gratitude and relief that someone's willing to help and that they want that help, but they don't necessarily always know how to reach out and get it. Only experts can prevent suicide. So the reason that's a myth is, although we talked about, right, your role's not counseling, you don't have to be a psychologist and know all the answers. You are someone who can connect someone to resources. And suicide prevention is everybody's business and anyone can help prevent the tragedy of suicide. So it kind of goes to that stepping up if we notice something, being willing to get involved and not only thinking that you have to be a professional mental health person to prevent a suicide. You can be that kind of conduit to help connect someone to resources.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
the first one, this is an interesting and wonderful class today. I'm just curious, I was checking the survey, I think my knowledge of this subject is a bit low. But what the first statement here says, if people get the help they need, there's a probability that they will never be suicidal again. I'd just like to ask why. Because it seems to me that I have friends in my life, even at my age, you see problems that people have who are dealing with mentally, and quite honestly, there's a large possibility of a relapse into drinking or kleptomania, or we could rattle off whatever the abnormality is. Why is it that if you're able to effectively treat this, that you'd be able to just thankfully say, this does not recur? Why is that?
So it's not that someone will never have any mental health potential problems again or never be suicidal. It is though if we get people the help they need and we get them the proper help they get with the right therapist, potentially the right medicine, it can stop them from being suicidal, because it's that crisis point, and when you get out of that crisis point, that can stop that pattern or stop at least that instance as well. Do you have anything to add to that?
So the other piece of it is actually adequate treatment. There's actually pretty good treatment for anxiety and depression, and those are the two biggies that lead to that lead to suicidality, right? And I think that when a person becomes aware of their triggers and they become aware of their own behaviors and thoughts, they can take care of business also as well. Like, for example, I know we have a lot of students who've expressed suicide ideation, and they have a safety plan. And they know when they start to have those thoughts and feelings, that they can go into their safety plan, for example, and do the things on the safety plan versus suicide. Does that make sense? Adequate
Yes.
treatment of anxiety and depression, really good safety planning, a good therapist with whom they.
I know you're a lot of person, I know.
No, it's a
No,
great
it's a
question.
Really good question, and when I read that, I'm just like, wow, that's pretty magic. It is kind of magical, though. I mean, honestly, it's a really, yeah. But the other thing you said was relapses into like alcoholism and that kind of thing, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. That is an issue. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome.
And yeah, definitely, that's a great question. All questions are always welcomed. And also, you have to think different reasons people maybe are suicidal. So for instance, that like if it's a situational cause, and then you get someone treatment, you get the safety plan, and that situation no longer exists, that's another reason that you can kind of prevent it in the future. But yeah, excellent question. So some other myths is that suicidal people keep their plans to themselves. And what we know is that most suicidal people communicate their intent sometime during the week preceding their attempt. And so, although not my story, I think I actually took this training as a student like 10 years ago. It was like a long time ago. And one of the stories that really stuck with me was that it was a student was like very sad in class, right? And it was really sad. And so they were walked to the student health center. And so they got some help at the student health center, and the student was sharing that like they just had a friend who had died by suicide, and like shared all the details of how this friend died. And so the student health center team had worked with the student and went through the safety plan, went through like, who do you have to contact, right? And it turned out that like they were very close with the pastor at their church, and that was their person they could talk to. And so then after the student left, there was still like a little bit of concern. There was a little bit like, okay, are they okay? And so they reached out to the pastor and was like, hey, I know you've been talking to so-and-so. I just want to make sure that everything's okay. And the pastor's like, oh no, I haven't been talking in a while. Like I've been out of town. And so that kind of set off like another red flag. And so they were able to contact the student's home. And they're like, hey, I'm so sorry. I heard like a really good family friend just died by suicide. I just want to make sure so-and-so is okay. And they're like, that friend didn't die. They're like right here, and we're having like a party tonight. And so the plan, what the student had shared with our team was their own plan for how to die by suicide. So they had shared all the details as if it was a friend, and it turned out that that was like their own plan. And so that story stuck with me because it was like that something's not right. And so you kind of follow up, and that like no one ever talks about it, but maybe it's more that like we have to learn to listen for the signs and symptoms, and we have to learn to hear what people are saying. And so that's like a really big one in this. It's like that story stuck with me, and then the training video where they kind of talk about like there's like a kid who keeps asking random questions like, oh, is there a place in heaven for me, all of this, and the mom kind of didn't think anything of it, and then the son ended up committing suicide. So thinking when we hear those stories that are maybe not or a bit out of place, to follow up, to think about it. So people may not be super direct, and we'll talk about that later, but often they do talk about it to some capacity. And so that kind of comes up with the other myth, like those who talk about suicide don't do it. This was a big one, like I heard, like it kind of goes with that first one, right? If you're going to commit suicide, there's nothing you can do, which we know isn't true. And also, if you're talking about it, you must not be that serious about it. But people who talk about suicide may try or even complete an act of self-destruction. So sometimes people are reaching out, they want that one more person to care or to check in. And so they are going to share what they're thinking about. Once a person decides to complete suicide, there's nothing anyone can do to stop them. Again, that kind of connects to that first one. We know that suicide's the most preventable kind of death, and almost any positive action may save a life. Culture plays a large role, right? We talked about all those statistics in someone's mental health, but there's no culture that's immune to suicide. So it can apply to anyone, and it's really important to, again, think of this as a preventable death. So looking at suicide clues and warning signs. So the more clues and signs observed, the greater the risk. So we need to take all signs seriously. Again, there's no like prescription, or if they have 2.5 symptoms or clues, then that is when we should be concerned, right? There's no prescription for it. All of this is really important to take seriously. So there's direct verbal cues. So some people may be as direct to say, like, I've decided to kill myself, right? Not everyone's going to say that, but some people will. We obviously need to take it seriously. There's always context to that, right? People often in like joke, you're in a class and you're like, oh, this assignment makes me want to kill myself, right? So you always have to weigh out what the context is and take everything serious though, right? Other direct verbal clues include, I wish I were dead. I'm going to commit suicide. I'm going to end it all. So those are all pretty direct. I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to commit suicide. Very direct. I wish I were dead is pretty direct. It might not be the word suicide or kill myself, but we want to definitely take that as a direct clue. I'm going to end it all. Again, that is a very specific direct clue. And then this is a big one. Again, thinking about that situational prevention. If such and such doesn't happen, I'll kill myself. And it can be something as like some of us may think like, oh, in math, I'm just happy to pass math, right? But for another student saying like, if I don't get an A on this test, I'll kill myself. And we can't necessarily blow that off because maybe that person's been working their whole life to get into this school, to get into this career. They have all this family pressure, cultural pressure. So that A on the math test does equate to something as serious as not wanting to be around anymore. And so what may not be something for us where we're like, C, right? Can be really significant for someone else. But often there's a lot of indirect verbal clues. So something like, I'm tired of life. I just can't go on with it. My family would be better off without me. Who cares if I'm dead anyways? So a lot of people can say this kind of checking for that reaction. I just want out. I won't be around much longer. Pretty soon you won't have to worry about me. So what makes these a little bit more indirect? Yeah.
Something such as like, I won't be around much longer. Feel like, oh, it's hurting me.
Yeah. Yeah, it causes you to have to make some decision process for sure. Anything else on your notes about like the indirect clues? Yeah, I think that's a great example. Like some of these can mean double things, or we can maybe not take as serious because we're like, okay, my family would be better off without me, or like maybe you just feel that way, but it doesn't seem as direct as saying, oh, I'm going to commit suicide. But these are all very important clues to be mindful of. Other indirect verbal clues are, I don't think I'll live past 21. So again, we talked about the age bracket of 18 to 25 and how significant it is to think about that. And some people just always have that, like, a lot of people growing up feel like, oh, I'm going to die young, but you really want to push on that, right? Why don't you think you'll live past 21? I'm sick of it and everyone's sick of me. So it's kind of a compounding one. They're expressing that they're sick of things and they also feel that people are sick of them. And culture and context determine language. Like I can't stress that enough. I know a lot of the statistics were very culture based, but there's different idioms we may use here that other cultures may not use. There's different ways of expressing it, again, within those stoic cultures. So really diving into those indirect clues. There's also behavioral clues, right? Any previous suicide attempt, as we just talked about, if we know someone has a history and maybe they don't have proper treatment, or they are relapsing or something like that, that's a significant behavioral clue. Acquiring a gun, 53% of all suicides, is this someone who they work as a police officer and they need a gun for their job, or they are a hunter, or this is part of like a culture, or is this completely out of the blue acquiring a gun? Or stockpiling pills. All of a sudden they're not taking their meds and they're stacking up and they're stockpiling those pills. We know that co-occurring depression, moodiness, and hopelessness. So when we know someone has depression and then we see that compounding factor of feeling hopeless, that's a significant behavioral clue. Also, putting personal affairs in order. Again, very context related. If you are potentially a parent and you want to make sure you have the house and the kids and everything in order, that may be different than someone who's 18 or 21 and is like hanging out at Moore Park College and all of a sudden starts putting their personal affairs in order, right? Deciding like, who's going to get this? Where's my dog going? Like, what is going to happen to me after this? That may be very different than someone in a later stage in life. So thinking about that context. Giving away prized possessions. If you have someone you've been friends with forever and all of a sudden you see that they start like, oh, do you want this? Because this means the most to me. Do you want my laptop? Well, like, why would you get rid of your laptop, right? Most people use their laptop almost every single day. So thinking about that, like that kind of like, here's after I'm gone, where everything's going to go. Sudden interest or disinterest in religion. People become interested or disinterested in religion, right, throughout life for various reasons, but it may be something where you notice, again, that sudden shift, that sudden, all of a sudden, like, I have zero faith in religion and there's no other cause that you see, right? Or I'm very interested in what's going to happen after death, what happens after death. And that's all of a sudden like a very primal focus. Drug or alcohol abuse or relapse after a period of recovery. So Allison will talk about alcohol a little bit later on, but it's one of the significant kind of compounding factors in this is when we look at that relapse, or again, it can impact treatment or the effectiveness of treatment. And it can also make people feel that guilt or that shame. And so it's a significant behavioral clue. Unexplained anger, aggression, and irritability, seeking revenge, talking or writing about death. These are all very important behavioral clues to pay attention to. And engaging in risky activities. Again, context-wise, it's like if you have someone who's like loves adrenaline and frequently skydives, I may be like, I hate adrenaline. I would not do that. So maybe pay attention if I start skydiving. But for them, that's no big deal. But if it's something like drunk driving frequently, speeding while not wearing a seatbelt, running red lights, things that are kind of out of the norm where there's that like, I don't care if I die. Like I'm going to race down this mountainside. That's the things we really want to pay attention to when there's that lack of like, well, I don't care if I die, not just like, I like a good adrenaline rush. And then situational clues or triggers. So being fired or suspended from school, or again, even just that like loss of seeing a future. So if you were planning to be a nurse or planning to be a lawyer, a doctor, something like that, and that seems like it's removed, that's now a situational clue, because something that someone's planned their whole life for, that their family's planned with them, can definitely be a trigger. A recent unwanted move, so especially maybe in the younger folks who did not want to move and now they feel displaced from their community. Loss of any major relationship. We definitely see that with if a relationship ends, that sometimes there's that, yes, everyone may feel sad, but that kind of past that significant sadness or that depression. Death of a spouse, child, or best friend, especially by suicide. So someone who's lost someone to suicide, it can really trigger a lot of those emotions, a lot of that guilt, the why didn't I know, or even just losing someone that you love can really be a trigger for that feeling of hopelessness. And diagnosis of a serious or terminal illness. So not only is there that personal stress, but kind of going back to that worry about being, a burden or to be a stressor on your family and be a physical and financial stressor. So that can be a serious trigger for many people. Sudden unexpected loss of freedom or fear of punishment. So maybe someone got in trouble with the law and they're worried about that and they just feel like it's not even worth it, or anticipated loss of financial security. So we definitely saw, right, anytime there's a recession, we see a lot of mental health problems and that fear of, will I be able to provide for myself, for my family, for my loved ones, fear of becoming a burden to others, humiliation, bullying, and exploitation. So again, like growing up's hard. There's a lot of hard things, and it can get even harder when there's humiliation or bullying or exploitation. Loss of cherished therapist, counselor, or teacher. So often when someone feels like they have that person who gets them, or they have that person they can go to and that's gone, that can create that feeling of like, what do I do now? So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Allison.
All right, so what do we do about it? Right, so now this is the nuts and bolts of the training here. And so QPR is ask a question, save a life. And we're gonna get some tips here. So tips for asking the question. So first of all, the question is, are you thinking of killing yourself? Are you thinking of suicide? Right, so the more direct you can be, the better. Right, so that's an important thing. So if you're in doubt, ask, right? So Jasmine was saying earlier that there are times when you're not exactly sure what's going on. Is this just somebody just saying, I'm going to kill myself? Oh my God, this is driving me nuts. Are they serious or not? If you don't know that person, ask, right? If the person is kind of cagey and doesn't really want to answer the question for you, be persistent about it. I have to say that in all the times I've asked that question, people have been very direct, either yes or no, or they say something like, I have in the past, but right now I'm okay, or something like that. So people tend to be pretty relieved that you're asking the question. And then the other tip is to make sure that when you ask this question of somebody, that it's in a private setting. So I wouldn't in the middle of the class say, gosh, you look really sad. Are you thinking of killing yourself? I would not do that. I would say, hey, can you see me up here? While people are kind of leaving the classroom or whatever, give the person a little privacy, right? And yourself too. You want to make sure that you have plenty of time to talk about it. Your QPR booklet, you don't have to look through it right now, has a lot of resources in it. We're going to have a slide with lots of resources in it too. And we recommend that you take a picture of that slide if you have your phone handy. And the other thing is I like to put all those resources in my phone so I can easily share that contact or whatever I want to do, however I want to share those resources with somebody. Okay. And then just remember, it doesn't really matter how you ask the question so much as that you do ask it, right? Although we'll see a few exceptions to that in a sec. All right. So a less direct approach, some of us still are feeling a little nervous about this. So you can say, hey, have you been unhappy lately? Have you been very unhappy lately? Have you been so unhappy that you're thinking about taking your life? You could say take your life. Sometimes that doesn't translate very directly to people. So hurting yourself, killing yourself, that's another way of putting it, right? And for kids, they don't necessarily understand the concept of death or killing themselves, but do you ever wish you could go to sleep and not ever wake up? Is a good way to ask a little child this question. And then a direct approach is, when people are hurting or as upset like you are, they sometimes wish they were dead. And I'm wondering if you're feeling that way too. That's a great way of putting it. When I ask somebody, I always make an observation first about how they appear to me, or, when people make these kinds of comments, a lot of times they're thinking about killing themselves or hurting themselves. And I'm wondering if that's the case for you too. All right. Are you thinking about killing yourself? Another really good direct way to put it. Here's the thing. If you can't ask the question, you need to find someone who can. If you're at school here and it's another student, what's one way to do that? What do you think? You could bring them to the student health center. We have people walking students over to the health center all the time. Like, I'm really worried about this student and I think they need help. We have students after QPR training, not immediately after, but like after they've had this training, feeling more comfortable walking students over to the health center all the time. All right, so remember how we said earlier, there's not a wrong way to ask a question. There are kind of wrong-ish ways to ask it. You're not thinking of killing yourself, are you? Wouldn't do anything stupid, would you? Suicide's a dumb idea. Surely you're not thinking of suicide. So what could possibly be wrong with this way of asking the question? What do you think? Yeah. 100%. You're judging them and you're doing something else that's really important here too. Yeah.
Or you're implying that if it's something they are thinking, that they're stupid.
Right. Yeah.
You're belittling.
Yeah. Yeah. What else?
Who's there?
Yeah. And validating your feelings. What, any other ideas? Yeah. Yeah. The other one that I just like to point out is you're sort of telling them the right answer. Do you know what I'm saying? Like if I ask that way, they may say, oh, no, I wouldn't be doing it, but they are thinking that, right? So you don't want to telescope, the normal person answer or whatever. You really want to get to the heart of the matter. Excellent. Good job. All right. So once you get the idea that, or the person tells you, yeah, they're thinking about it. Now your job is to persuade them to stay alive, right? So you're going to listen. The big thing is to listen to the problem. What is happening that's making you feel like you want to kill yourself? Tell me a little bit more about it. And in your instance, your friend's instance, that they were having some problems with alcohol, for example, or something like that. A lot of times it's, I lost my job and I can't pay for my house, or my family's going to suffer, or something like that, right? Suicide is not the problem. It's only the solution to a perceived insoluble problem, right? One of my friends who's a therapist always refers to it as a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And I really like that idea of it. So asking the person to tell you more is really helpful. And do not rush to judgment. We just talked about how judging is not great for this situation. And then offering hope in any way that you can. If it's a friend whose finances are falling apart, if they're a student here, for example, oh my gosh, we have this great financial aid department, and we really try to help people here with their finances. Students have all kinds of financial problems, and we have a lot of solutions for that. Maybe it's their car broke down and they can't get to work. And if they can't get to work, they can't, earn money and they can't pay their bills. And you can see that it just becomes very overwhelming. They don't have enough to eat. We have solutions for that on campus for students, right? So listening to the story and realizing that person's brain looks sort of like those scans that we saw earlier, that very dark blue scan, that they're not really thinking about a solution-based strategy that doesn't involve killing themselves, and you can help them with that, right? So offering hope in any way, even if it's something like, I would really miss you. We have lots of things that we still have to accomplish. Hope in any form, really important. Okay, then persistent statements that suicide is not a good solution, right? Focus on whatever healthy alternative. I just mentioned a bunch of them. Be respectful. You already picked that up. Great. And then collaborate with the person. What can we do together to make this better? Can you come with me to the student health center? Can we make an appointment together at financial aid, or whatever it is, right? Offer hope in any way you can. So sometimes hope is, let's get you some therapy. Let's go see one of the mental health providers. And sometimes that person's going to say something like, I've already done it and it doesn't work. So the person is here still, so something about it worked. And that's a strategy that you can say. But the other piece of it is that you can say, what if this time it does work? A big part of mental health treatment is that a lot of times people have a therapist that they just don't jive with. They just don't get on with that person very well. And so they think all therapy is going to be like that. And it's really important to understand that that's not the case. That many people have 2 or 3 or 4 attempts at therapy before they find just the right person. Does that make sense? So that's a really good thing to say. And then remember, we talked about you're not the therapist, you're the referral source. So we want you, the R stands for referred. Suicidal people often feel like they can't be helped, so you need to do more. The best referral is taking the person directly to someone who can help. And that's why we say if you're at school, while we're student health centers open, you can walk somebody over to the student health center. We have it happen all the time. We have professors and other students walking people there all the time. That's a really good one, if you can get them to let you do that. If we're not here, if it's not a student, if it's after hours or whatever, there are phone calls that you can make, and we're going to go over that in a sec, but that's another great way to, at that time, help that person. You can kind of see why you need to pick a time that and have enough time, right? Well, come on here. There we go. All right. The next best is, will you let me get you help? I can do some resource searching. I can check around to see if there are therapists that are on your insurance, or those kinds of things. Let me help you get some help, right? Get you those resources. And that's why we want you to have those resources handy. And then, will you promise not to kill yourself until we found some help? That's another one. And most of the time, people who say they will not kill themselves until X time won't do it. Most of the time, that's the case, right? Okay. So a big thing is your willingness to listen and to help can really rekindle help, and it can make all the difference in the world. It really can. All right, so this is that slide I was telling you about, and this is if you have a camera handy, if you have your phone handy, you can take a picture of the slide. So the suicide hotline, this is really cool. It used to be 1-800 blah 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 right there. It's on there like that, but now you can just dial 988. So if you're sitting there with a person who's contemplating suicide, or you're not really sure if they're contemplating suicide, they're being a little bit cagey with you, you can still call 988 on your phone and say, I'm sitting here with my friend and they said blah, 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 and I'm really worried about them. And they'll let you hand your phone over to the person that you're sitting with, and they'll talk to the person and ask them the questions and ask them where they live and get those resources for them. So that's a really great strategy, is to just call the suicide hotline together, right? So there are other ones here too. There's a specific veterans one. It's part of the suicide hotline. Trevor Lifeline is awesome for LGBTQ plus community members with really specific resources. Remember, we were talking about resources specific to certain social groups, right? That's a really good one. The resource we love a lot here on our campus. So you may find out that somebody isn't suicidal, but they're still down. They're still feeling not so hot for whatever reason right now. The crisis text line can be used by anybody, right? You just text 741-741, and then you can just text the concerns. And we like to share this with students all the time, because a lot of times when you're freaked out, it's 3 a.m. It's not conveniently during our business hours, right? And also there are a lot of people who live in families that are not okay with mental health services, mental health providers, that kind of thing. And they can quietly, not making any noise, have this interaction with a provider. So that's sometimes they're trained volunteers or staff, right? They're always trained. So that's a good one, and our students really love that one. We also have really good emergency services here in our area too. So just be aware of that as well. This is another good one to take a picture of if you'd like. These are resources for therapists. One is Psychology Today, and they let you
search by ethnic group, by race, by social group, right? And then inclusive therapists have a lot of therapists that are not just white people, white hetero cisgender people. They're all different kinds of groups represented there. The other thing is there's a safety guideline. We don't want you to put yourself in harm's way. So for example, if the person that you're concerned about has a weapon, right, or object that they could use as a weapon, a gun, anything like that, that's a call 911, and keep yourself at a distance. If you're speaking over the phone with the person, that's another 911. If it's good to get their obviously their information, like where are you right now, or what sounds can you hear, or that kind of thing. That's really important. If you notice that the person is passed out, or you see that they've had an overdose of pills, or there's signs of really heavy alcohol use, that's another 911. If you're confronted by somebody who's hostile, you want to leave. You want to try to get to a point where you can see what's going on, but you're not in harm's way. And then you want to report what you observed to 911. Does that make sense? That we don't want you to get hurt. This is the other biggie that you had mentioned earlier, and that is that since almost all efforts to persuade someone to live instead of to attempt suicide will be met with agreement and relief, don't hesitate to get involved or take the lead. Okay. So for effective QPR, I want you to live, get others involved. Remember the story that Jasmine told about the whole team, the pastor, the family, right? Join the team, offer, following up with a phone call or a note or something like that is really helpful to let the person know that you're really thinking about them and care about them. All right, so now we're gonna practice these skills that you just learned. And we have an even number of students, but we have you kind of spread out in a funny way. So we're going to do groups of two, again, pairs. So if you could get yourself, maybe if you move down here, that would be helpful. And here's the situation. So if you can kind of see that you're not really, we have three, maybe if we can get, just move closer to the issue. It's easier to move around so that you're kind of in a pair top situation. Okay, so one of you in the pair will be the helper or the gatekeeper. Right, so when you're done with the screening, you'll be your gatekeepers. So you're going to be the helper. And the other person is gonna be the person that needs help. Right, you're going to be the individual. So this salmon color one is going to go to the troubled individual. So you're going to read over your charts, right? And the troubled individual gives you kind of some idea of what's going on in the troubled individual life. And then after you get kind of your idea, the other person, the helper, the gate person, you're just going to start chatting them up, and then all of this information is going to unfold. At some point, you're going to have to ask that person if they're thinking of killing themselves. That's the whole ritual out of it. Okay, and so we want to hear how that is for you. We want to hear that you got to that point. We want to hear what you did about it once you heard the answer to that. Do you want to like do half the room and I'll do the other half of the room? Yep. Okay, here. Use the. There you go. All right. So, all right. You can do that. You want to say more for the here. All right.
That's a good method. I like that method. So that's like giving you some even, just to kind of create your story, huh?
But we should be able to. Once you get therapy. That's all right. How are you? Good, all right. Don't see. I've been asked. Feel kind of old now. That's a good.
A lot of awesome time. How many of you, gatekeepers were able to get to the? How was that for you? How was that for you? For the people that got to it? How did it go for you? Yes, you.
It was really insightful. I feel like it taught me a lot about how to get through to a person.
Just asking the
Yeah.
question. So, who else would like to, how was that for you?
I mean, it took some warming up, I guess. or-
Which was,
I think the roughest part was like fighting this feeling that like I felt like I was doing improv. sort of thing, but, you know, once it was finally out that they
Yeah.
were like considering suicide, I felt like there was potential to ask more meaningful questions and begin to you know, see what sort of options you had available to you and sort of talk to this person.
That's great. That's an interesting observation. It's like now that I've gotten past that part, now I can go into home. Yeah, nice. What, anybody else that got to the question? How was that? Yeah,
It was difficult to word, like I had to try it first, like before I worded it, but once you thought about it.
how you wanted to say that. Yeah, sometimes it can feel kind of abrupt when you're worried, but like, how am I gonna ask this question? And yeah. I can tell you the more you ask it, the easier it gets. It seems like part of the religion. So if you were not able to get to it, can you share a little bit about why you weren't able to get, like, what were some of the barriers to getting to that question? Things that you was able to share. You know, what are you, oh, you're going back to your slide. And yeah, I know, I'm not totally, hey, no, you know what?
We all have our quadrants.
Very good question.
Yeah. I have a learned that. So any observations of those that were felt uncomfortable and just,
Okay.
Yeah.
It's too big
it feels really big.
and, it requires a level of intimacy that you don't get from a, quick narrow class.
Yeah, right.
I think it's excellent that. I would say that one thing I would say culturally is that I'm very glad we're shifting to where there's no problem about mental things that
Yeah.
we discussed,
Yeah,
which is a complete 180 from my
yeah,
childhood. That's so, we every day this should be.
100%.
Things feel like their own depression, desire to drain or sexuality, and that should all be discussed.
Right.
But believe me, it does require a level of intimacy more than filters. 2-minute chat. With a student, a fellow student.
For sure, especially if they don't look like. It's that looks like what it's here, it's still go out and for the person. And like, yeah, make sure they're asking questions. Yeah, of like that's like. You last case scenario of like, not you hear about the conversation and have them like. You have an idea to go out and be like. That's a wrong idea because like, validate with that instead of like asking. the question. So the big question, remember, and I want to stress this doesn't make the person want to go. Sometimes they are even relieved to hear that big question. If they are not suicidal. Oh, no, I'm not suicidal. Like, okay, at least I'm not suicidal. That's like a really positive thing. I just want everybody to hear that. The other thing is, and this is gonna sound silly, you don't have to do it around your friends or anything, but it's a good idea to practice asking this question so that the words feel comfortable. Think of a few different ways to say it and just practice it that way, because I agree that one too thing is not going to get 100% easy for you. But the more you ask the question, think about asking and thinking about finding that and what you would say, it's gonna make it easier. Right, any last comments, questions, concerns? I mean, you guys felt it, you did it, that was a very bad thing to say. You guys did a great, you guys did a great job. So, no, proud of you all. So, yeah. Best or worst. Good job. So. And I want you to bring up either your salmon colored paper or your white paper. Bring those up, put them on the little piles. And then I want you to put your surveys like here, and then we'll give you your certificate.
And then don't forget about the little reminders and stuff up here. I'll see my Wednesday.
All right, nice job, everybody. It was really good work today.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're so welcome.